My friends, when we hear the word strength, we often imagine something loud, someone shouting, showing power, displaying control. But real strength, true strength, is not loud. It is silent. It doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need applause. It simply exists, steady, calm, and grounded. Think of a candle in a dark room. The candle doesn't scream to remove the darkness. It just burns quietly, and the darkness disappears on its own. That is strength. And that's what we often see in a strong woman's life. A silent, glowing, unshakable kind of strength. Every single day around us, there are women who display this strength, not by fighting wars outside, but by winning battles within. She wakes up before everyone else, prepares the home, sends the kids to school, goes to work, faces the pressure of deadlines, handles emotions, and still manages to smile at the end of the day. Tell me, isn't that power? But the world rarely claps for that kind of strength because it isn't visible. It's not noisy, it's silent. I remember once, during my travels, I met a woman who had lost her husband at a very young age. She was left alone with two small children, no financial support, and no one to guide her. When I asked her how she managed, she smiled and said, "Maharaj, when you have no one, you realize God is enough." That line stayed with me forever. She didn't complain. She didn't blame. She simply stood strong, like a tree that loses its leaves in the winter, but knows that spring will come again. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's strength. A strong woman doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. She doesn't need to shout, "Look at me." Her actions, her consistency, her peace, they speak for her. Every time life pushes her down, she rises a little higher, quietly. Every time someone breaks her trust, she learns to trust herself more. Every time she's misunderstood, she learns to understand others deeper. That's how she grows, not by fighting, but by flowing. Sometimes, she faces situations where she has every right to break, and yet she doesn't. Think of the mother who smiles while sending her son away to study abroad, hiding her tears behind that smile. Think of the daughter who sacrifices her dreams to take care of her parents. Think of the wife who stands by her husband through failures and storms. None of them shout their strength. They simply live it. When people see her, they may say, "Oh, she's just managing life." But if you look closer, she's doing something extraordinary. She's balancing emotions, responsibilities, pain, and hope all at once. That is not ordinary. That is divine. Have you noticed how, when something goes wrong in a family, the first person everyone runs to is the mother? When a child is hurt, when a husband is worried, when the house feels chaotic, everyone looks at her, and somehow she always finds the right words, the right calmness, the right smile to bring peace. Where does that come from? It comes from her strength, not physical, but emotional, spiritual, and deeply human. We live in a world where people think power is about control, but she knows that true power is about compassion. Power is not in raising your voice, it's in raising your heart. Power is not in showing the world how strong you are, it's in helping others realize their own strength. She does that quietly. She listens, she understands, she heals. Many times I've seen women who carry unspoken pain, and yet they continue to love. That's something divine. Even when her heart is breaking, She'll make sure her loved ones don't feel that pain. She'll smile, cook, work, care, and pray as if everything is fine. She doesn't fake it. She faces it. She knows that if she collapses, others will too. So she stands not because she's unhurt, but because she's needed. That's what makes her unbreakable. There's a story I often share. A young boy once asked his mother, "Mom, why are you always strong? Don't you ever get tired?" The mother smiled and said, "I do, my son. But every time I feel weak, I remember that you're watching me. And I can't let you learn weakness from me." That's the silent power of a woman. She inspires without a single lecture. Her actions become the lesson. And yet, my dear friends, this strength is not about carrying burdens alone. It's about carrying them gracefully. It's about smiling even when there's no reason to. It's about believing that the same God who gave the storm will also give the strength to survive it. A strong woman doesn't shout in anger when life gets unfair. She whispers in prayer. She doesn't run from challenges. She walks through them with patience as her companion and faith as her shield. She knows storms will come, but she also knows they will pass. Next time you see a woman who quietly holds her world together, respect her. She might not be the loudest person in the room, but she's often the one who keeps the room peaceful. Her strength may not be visible, but it's there, in her eyes, in her patience, in her gentle smile. So, my friends, never mistake silence for weakness. In silence lies the deepest strength. In patience lies the greatest power. And in every woman's quiet endurance lies a divine message. That no matter how hard life gets, we can all choose to stand tall, stay kind, and remain strong without making noise. Because real strength doesn't need to shout, it simply shines. Pain, my friends, is one of the greatest teachers life can ever offer. Nobody invites pain, and yet it visits everyone. It doesn't knock on the door politely. It walks right in, rearranges everything inside us, and leaves us changed forever. But here's the beauty. Pain doesn't always come to destroy us. Sometimes it comes to define us. Sometimes it comes to awaken the sleeping strength within. And for a strong woman, pain doesn't become a prison. It becomes a path. You see, a woman's life is full of unseen struggles. From a young age, she's taught to care, to give, to adjust, to smile even when it hurts. Society often expects her to be perfect. A perfect daughter, a perfect wife, a perfect mother. But in that constant effort to fulfill everyone's expectations, she sometimes forgets herself. And then life, with its unpredictable storms, reminds her that she too needs to grow, to rise, to rediscover her worth. Pain becomes the messenger that says, "You are more than what you think you are." I once met a lady after a session who said to me, "Gaur Gopal Das ji, I never knew how strong I was until pain knocked on my door." She had gone through a painful divorce after years of sacrifice and emotional struggle. She told me how she cried every night, how she doubted herself, how she thought life was over. But one morning, she looked at her children and realized if she gives up, they lose too. So she got up, wiped her tears, and started working. She learned new skills, built her career, and raised her kids with grace. Today, she doesn't speak of that pain with bitterness. She speaks of it with pride, because it was that pain that gave her a purpose. Pain, when faced with the right attitude, becomes a sculptor. It carves away the unnecessary, ego, dependency, fear, and reveals the masterpiece hidden inside. A woman who goes through heartbreak learns what real love means. A mother who loses sleep for her children learns the depth of selflessness. A daughter who sees her parents struggle learns responsibility. A widow who rebuilds her life learns resilience. Every wound becomes wisdom. Every scar becomes a story of survival. Let me share something simple from everyday life. When you plant a seed, it must break before it grows. The outer shell must crack for the inner life to emerge. If the seed refuses to break, it will never become a tree. Similarly, pain cracks us open. It breaks our comfort, our illusion, our dependence, and that breaking allows growth. So when life cracks you, don't curse it. Sometimes that's how the light enters. And a strong woman understands this truth deeply. She knows that crying doesn't make her weak, it makes her real. She allows herself to feel, but she never allows herself to be defined by the feeling. When the world sees her pain, they may see defeat. But what's actually happening inside is transformation. Just like a butterfly, she must go through the dark cocoon of struggle before she can fly. There's another woman I met during one of my travels. She had lost her only son in an accident. I could feel the depth of her pain as she spoke. But what amazed me was her peace. She said, "Swamiji, I've realized something. God took my son from my arms, but he never took him from my heart. And maybe he left me here so that I could help other mothers who suffer like me." She started a small support group for grieving parents, and today she's the reason many broken hearts found hope again. See how pain gave birth to purpose. She turned her tears into a river that nourishes others. And that's what pain does for a strong woman. It doesn't end her, it elevates her. When she loses something she thought she couldn't live without, she discovers something inside her that she never knew existed: strength. When someone betrays her trust, she learns to trust herself. When people leave, she learns to walk alone. When everything falls apart, she learns to rebuild with grace. She doesn't rush her healing. She lets the pain pass through her, and as it passes, it purifies her. She begins to see that sometimes pain isn't the punishment, it's preparation. It prepares her heart for empathy. It prepares her mind for wisdom. It prepares her soul for compassion. Because only those who've been broken can truly understand what it means to help others heal. So the next time you see a woman who smiles after surviving pain, don't just admire her smile. Understand that behind that smile are nights of tears, prayers, and courage. Every time she said, "I'm fine," she wasn't fine, but she was fighting, and that fight, that quiet fight, has made her unstoppable. Pain is not the end of her story. It's the beginning of a new chapter. It's the bridge that connects her past to her purpose. She no longer asks, "Why me?" She begins to ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" And that one question changes everything. Because once pain becomes a teacher, every experience becomes a lesson. So my friends, if you are going through pain right now, remember this. Don't run away from it. Sit with it. Learn from it. Let it shape you, not shatter you. Like a strong woman, let your pain polish you until you shine. Because the same fire that melts wax can harden clay. It's not the fire that decides It's what you're made of. A strong woman is made of something divine. She doesn't avoid pain, she absorbs it and turns it into power. Her tears are not a sign of weakness. They're proof that she feels deeply, loves deeply, and still chooses to move forward. Her pain becomes her power, her wounds become her wisdom, and her past becomes her purpose. That is the miracle of the unbreakable spirit. To take what was meant to destroy you and use it to design the best version of you. Pain doesn't make her bitter, it makes her beautiful. Because pain, in the hands of a strong woman, is never wasted. It becomes the seed of something sacred, a purpose that can light the world. You know, my friends, the world often teaches us to compete, to run faster, climb higher, and do better than the person next to us. From childhood, we're told, be number one. Don't let anyone get ahead of you. But a strong woman, she doesn't live by that rule. She doesn't compete to prove her worth. She knows who she is. She knows her value. She doesn't need to stand above anyone. She simply stands within herself, rooted, peaceful, and powerful. She doesn't compete, she completes. That is her secret. She doesn't look at others and think, how can I beat them? She looks at herself and thinks, how can I become better than I was yesterday? There's a quiet beauty in that kind of confidence. A confidence that doesn't shout, but shines. You see, competition comes from comparison, and comparison is the thief of joy. When you compare yourself to others, you stop seeing your own blessings. A strong woman doesn't do that. She celebrates others' success without feeling small. She knows that someone else's light doesn't dim her own. The world has enough room for everyone to shine. I remember once speaking to a woman who worked in a corporate company. She said, Swamiji, I used to get frustrated when my colleagues got promoted and I didn't. I used to think I wasn't good enough. But one day, I realized maybe God has a different timing for me. Maybe He's preparing me for something that's not yet visible. And indeed, a year later, she got an opportunity far beyond what she had ever imagined. That's what happens when you stop chasing others' timing and start trusting your own. A strong woman doesn't rush her journey. She trusts the process. Every flower blooms in its own time. The rose and the lotus don't compete. The rose blooms in the garden, the lotus blooms in the pond. Both are beautiful, both are admired, but they grow in different environments. Similarly, a strong woman understands that her path doesn't need to look like someone else's. She doesn't measure her success by someone else's applause. She measures it by her peace. And when she loves, she doesn't compete for control. She completes through care. In relationships, she doesn't say, I must win every argument. She says, we must win as a team. She knows that ego may win small battles, but loses big connections. That's why her love feels different. It's not a power struggle, it's a peaceful surrender. She doesn't want to dominate her partner. She wants to elevate him. She doesn't want to be above anyone. She wants to grow with everyone. A strong woman's strength doesn't lie in how loud she speaks, but in how deeply she listens. She doesn't want to prove her worth by putting others down. Her heart is too generous for that. She lifts others up, knowing that when one person rises, humanity rises a little too. Her strength is in inclusion, not exclusion. Her power is in unity, not superiority. Think of a mother. She never competes with her children. She completes their lives with love, care, and guidance. Think of a good leader. She doesn't compete with her team. She completes the team by bringing harmony and vision. Think of a true friend. She doesn't envy your success. She cheers for you genuinely. That's the spirit of a strong woman. She finds joy in others' joy. She doesn't seek validation because she already knows her value. She doesn't need a crown to feel like a queen. Her dignity, her compassion, her faith, these are her jewels. The world might overlook her, but she knows that worth is not about recognition, it's about realization. Sometimes, people misunderstand her calmness as weakness. They think she's not ambitious enough, that she's not fighting hard enough. But what they don't understand is she has learned the difference between competition and contribution. She's not running in a race, she's running on a mission. Her goal is not to be better than others, it's to be a blessing to others. And that's why wherever she goes, she adds peace, not pressure. She doesn't enter a room to impress, she enters to inspire. She doesn't speak to be heard, she speaks to heal. She doesn't act out of insecurity, she acts out of purpose. I once met a woman who was a teacher in a small village school. She said to me, "Swamiji, I know I'll never be famous. But when I see my students becoming good human beings, I feel fulfilled." That's what completion looks like. She doesn't need the world's applause. Her satisfaction comes from contribution. In a world where everyone wants to be seen, a strong woman is content to be felt. She doesn't need to shout her achievements. Her presence speaks louder. When she walks into a place, people feel calm, loved, respected. Because she's not competing to be better. She's being better. Her peace is her power. Her humility is her strength. She knows that real confidence doesn't compare, it creates. She creates harmony in her relationships, balance in her work, and grace in her character. And you know what's truly inspiring? Even when she's surrounded by people who compete, gossip, and compare, she doesn't let their energy affect her. She silently keeps doing what she's meant to do. She knows that what's hers will find her, that destiny doesn't need competition, it needs consistency. So if you ever see a woman who doesn't rush, who doesn't envy, who doesn't compete, understand this: she's not behind, she's at peace. She has learned that life is not about being better than someone else. It's about being better for someone else. She's learned that the greatest success is not being admired by many, but being loved and respected by those who truly matter. A strong woman completes wherever she goes. She completes families with her compassion. She completes friendships with her honesty. She completes workplaces with her dedication. She completes this world by simply being herself, humble, graceful, and strong. So my dear friends, remember, a flower doesn't compete with the flower next to it, it just blooms. And when you bloom with grace, you inspire others to bloom too. That is the beauty of a strong woman. She doesn't compete, she completes. Faith, my friends, is the invisible thread that holds the universe together. It's what keeps the heart steady when everything else is falling apart. For a strong woman, faith is not a ritual or a word, it's a way of living. It's the quiet strength she leans on when the storms of life try to blow her away. It's her anchor when the waves rise, her lamp when the night feels endless, her whisper of hope when the world goes silent. There are moments in every woman's life when she feels alone, truly alone, when her best friend doesn't understand her, when her family expects too much, when the world misunderstands her silence as weakness. In those moments, she doesn't scream at life and ask, "Why me?" She closes her eyes and says softly, "God, I don't understand, but I trust you." That one sentence is where her real strength begins. Because faith doesn't mean the absence of pain, it means the presence of peace in the middle of pain. I once met a woman during one of my talks. She came up to me afterward and said, "Swamiji, for years I prayed for my husband to recover from his illness. He didn't. But through those years, I realized something. My prayers were not changing his condition, they were changing me. They made me patient. They made me grateful. They made me stronger." That's what faith does. It doesn't always change the situation, it transforms the person living through it. A strong woman's faith is not blind, it's brave. It's not based on everything going right, it's based on believing even when everything goes wrong. She doesn't need to see the whole staircase to take the first step. She just trusts that if she walks with sincerity, the path will appear. Faith for her is not waiting for miracles, it's becoming one. When she faces loss, she doesn't say, "God, why did you take this away from me?" She says, "Thank you for what you gave, and thank you for what you're teaching me through this." When she faces delays, she doesn't lose hope, she whispers, "If it's taking time, maybe it's because it's meant to last." That's how her faith works. Not demanding, not complaining, but surrendering with grace. I remember a story of a mother whose only daughter was going through a long illness. For months, she stayed awake by her bedside, praying silently every night. One day, someone asked her, "How do you do it? Aren't you tired?" She smiled and said, "I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but I know who holds tomorrow." That's faith, not knowing what the future holds, but knowing who holds the future. Faith gives a strong woman the courage to walk through fire without fear of getting burned, because she knows that the same God who allows the fire will also give her the strength to walk through it. She knows that her destiny is not in the hands of fate, but in the hands of the divine. And when life gets dark, she doesn't curse the darkness, she lights a candle of trust. Sometimes her faith is tested not by big tragedies, but by small daily challenges. When people misunderstand her intentions, when she works hard but is unnoticed, when her sacrifices are taken for granted. In those moments, she doesn't harden her heart. She continues to give, to love, to serve, because she knows she's not doing it for the world's approval. She's doing it as an offering to God. Faith is not always about kneeling in prayer. Sometimes it's about standing tall after you've fallen. Sometimes it's about holding yourself together when no one else is there to hold you. Sometimes it's about choosing kindness even when the world has been unkind. And that's what a strong woman does. She walks by faith, not by sight. There's something so beautiful about a woman who has faith. You can see it in her eyes. There's calmness there, not because her life is easy, but because she knows she's guided. Her smile carries a quiet assurance that says, This too shall pass. Her heart carries an unshakable peace that no circumstance can steal. Faith doesn't mean she never questions. Oh, she does. She cries, she wonders, she breaks. But even in her breaking, she believes. Her tears are not a sign of doubt, they're an offering of surrender. She knows that even when she can't trace God's hand, she can still trust His heart. One evening, I was walking near a temple and saw a woman sitting quietly with her hands folded, eyes closed, tears running down her face. I went up to her and asked, "Are you praying for something?" She smiled and said, "No, Swamiji, I'm not praying for something. I'm just thanking God for keeping me strong." That, my friends, is what true faith looks like. Gratitude even without answers, trust even without clarity. A strong woman's faith is her silent armor. It protects her from bitterness, it shields her from fear. While the world rushes, she rests in trust. While others panic, she prays. While others give up, she grows stronger. Her faith doesn't make her life perfect, it makes her peaceful. And when people ask her, "How do you stay so calm?" she doesn't say much. She just smiles because she knows something the world often forgets. That when you have faith, you're never really alone. Even in the darkest night, there's a hand guiding you, a purpose shaping you, a light waiting for you. So, my dear friends, remember this: faith is not something you find when life is easy. It's something you forge when life is hard. It's not something you hold, it's something that holds you. And a strong woman knows that no matter how rough the storm, her anchor is firm, her heart is steady, and her God is faithful. Because faith doesn't remove the challenges, it changes the way you face them. It gives you the eyes to see beyond the pain, the heart to love beyond the wounds, and the courage to rise again and again. A woman who walks in faith doesn't need to see the sun to know it's there. She simply knows that even when clouds cover the sky, the light never stops shining. And that, my friends, is the power of faith, the unbreakable spirit within a strong woman. She carries many roles yet remains one soul. That's the quiet miracle of a strong woman. She is not just one person, she is many hearts living inside one body. A daughter filled with dreams, a wife filled with devotion, a mother filled with endless patience, a friend filled with compassion, a professional filled with ambition. And yet, despite wearing all these faces, she never loses the essence of who she truly is. Her life is a beautiful balance between duty and identity, responsibility and grace. From dawn to dusk, her life moves like poetry. Before the world even wakes up, she's already at work, maybe cooking, cleaning, preparing lunches, or perhaps reading, planning, meditating. Her mind is always a step ahead, thinking not for herself, but for everyone she loves. And yet she finds joy in it. Not because it's easy, but because it's meaningful. A strong woman doesn't measure her worth by how much she carries. She measures it by how much love she can pour into everything she does. I remember once meeting a woman in Mumbai who worked full time as a banker. She told me, "Swamiji, every morning I leave my son at school and feel guilty that I can't spend more time with him. Then at work, I feel guilty that I'm not giving enough to my job. Every night, I go to sleep thinking I failed at something." I smiled and told her, "You didn't fail, you fulfilled. You may not be perfect, but you're present, and that's enough." She wiped her tears and smiled, because sometimes women need to hear that what they're doing, even if unseen, matters deeply. A strong woman may appear calm on the surface, but inside she's constantly managing emotions, expectations, dreams, and fears. She is the silent bridge that connects everyone in the family, making sure no one feels left behind. And even when she feels unseen, she continues to give, not for recognition, but out of love. That's her strength. She doesn't give because it's easy, she gives because it's who she is. Have you noticed how she can sense when someone's upset without a single word being spoken? Her child walks in quietly, and she knows. Her husband stays silent at dinner, and she understands. Her friend sounds cheerful, but she feels the hidden sadness behind the laughter. This is her gift, empathy. She doesn't need explanations. Her heart just knows. That's how connected her soul is to the people she loves. Even when life tests her, she doesn't complain. She bends, but she doesn't break. When her dreams are delayed, she finds new dreams for her loved ones. When she feels exhausted, she finds strength in seeing others happy. It's as if God placed a divine reservoir of strength inside her, one that never runs dry, even when the world keeps taking from it. I once saw a mother in a hospital sitting beside her son's bed. Her eyes were tired, her clothes were wrinkled, but her hand kept gently caressing his forehead. Someone asked her, "Aren't you tired?" She smiled softly and said, "Yes, but if I rest, who will take care of him?" That's what it means to carry many roles, to keep giving even when there's nothing left, to keep standing even when your knees are trembling. And yet she doesn't complain. She finds strength in love, and love becomes her oxygen. A strong woman also knows how to switch roles with grace. One moment she's a teacher, the next she's a friend. One moment she's guiding, the next she's learning. Her life is a dance, not of perfection, but of presence. She may stumble, she may fall, but she never stops moving. She knows that every role she plays adds a new layer to her soul, shaping her into someone wiser, softer, and stronger. But here's the most beautiful part. Despite being so many things for so many people, she never lets go of herself. In the silence of the night, when the world finally rests, she reconnects with her own soul. She prays, she reflects, she dreams. She remembers who she is beyond the labels, beyond mother, wife, daughter. In that stillness, she returns to herself. That's how she stays whole. Many people think strength is about saying yes to everything, but a strong woman knows that sometimes saying no is an act of love, love for herself. She understands that she cannot pour from an empty cup, so she refills herself not through luxury, but through moments of peace. A cup of tea at dawn, a small prayer before bed, a walk under the open sky. These are her sacred pauses that keep her spirit alive. Her life is not a straight line. It's a tapestry woven with threads of sacrifice, joy, struggle, and love. Each role adds color to that tapestry. Some threads are bright, filled with laughter. Others are dark, born from tears. But together, they create something beautiful, a picture of resilience and faith. And though she may not always see the beauty herself, those around her do, because it's her presence that keeps everything from falling apart. She doesn't expect rewards for all she does. Her reward is the peace she sees on her family's faces, The laughter of her children, the gratitude of those she helps, that's enough for her. And yet, deep inside, she too has dreams, dreams she rarely speaks about. Maybe it's to travel, to write, to learn, to create. She carries them quietly in her heart, waiting for the right time, believing that one day she will nurture those dreams too. The truth is, a strong woman's life is not easy. It's filled with sacrifices most people never see. But she doesn't let those sacrifices harden her. Instead, they make her gentle, because she understands that being soft in a hard world is not weakness, it's courage. And through it all, she remains one soul, pure, kind, unwavering. So, my dear friends, when you look at a woman juggling 100 responsibilities, don't just see her actions, see her spirit. Behind that smile is discipline, behind that patience is pain, behind that calmness is chaos. But above all, behind that body of roles is one shining soul, unshaken, unbroken, full of love. She carries many roles, yet remains one soul, and in that lies her true strength.